Hello, welcome to the 51st episode of Al's Joint. I'll be joined by my co-host Dennis Painter as we jump right into the Epstein files dump. It brings a lot more names out here, folks, and we got a lot to talk about. So as we pay homage to the Winans and ain't no need to worry, let's take the gloves off and let's get at it. Well, Brother Painter, here we are again with a ton of news from this administration. It never stops. However, thank goodness we got some of the Epstein stuff out. I know they're trying to block the other 3 million or so documents from coming out, but there's plenty here so far, and I'm assuming that at some point we might be able to get even more information out of the Department of Injustice at some point.
Well, I'm hoping so. We got finally big names are out there. But my concern is the Department of Injustice. They had the authority back when they arrested and Epstein was convicted and put in prison or jail. They had names of those men and women who broke the law then. And the Department of Injustice did not go after those powerful people. Now, at the time, that wasn't a big deal. We didn't hear about it until Trump made it a big deal. The Epstein files a big deal during his campaign. He was going to go after those people. So, well, it came back to bite him. And now, guess whose name is at the top of the list is mentioned most often? Donald J. Trump.
35,000 times. And that's just in this batch.
Yeah. So, I mean, you look at that and, I made a list here. Here they are. This is Trump's circle, except for the second one. Bill Clinton is not in his circle, but he was in there. Bill Gates, Elon Musk, former Prince Andrew, who's been his title's been taken away from him. Former New York Giants co-owner Steve Tisch, Ratner, who just directed the film with Melania Trump, had a photo showing him and Epstein on the couch with Melania and several other women, although they claimed nothing happened. And then Steve Bannon, of course, Trump's advisor during his first campaign for presidency, and they all are claiming, get this now, oh yeah, I knew him, but I severed my ties with him. And oh no, I didn't do anything. I didn't do anything illegal, even though Epstein got arrested and put in prison for doing something illegal, as did Maxwell. But all his associates didn't do anything illegal. I didn't know, Al. And it's part of doing your own research. Okay, I did not know that less than 2 weeks prior to Epstein's death, Epstein's attorneys was working with the Department of Justice to cut a deal. They were doing, in the way it was, they put it was offering to discuss the possibility of cooperation and resolution to this case, which meant giving names, in my opinion. Now, less than 2 weeks later, Epstein was dead. Every indication was, a psychiatrist gave a report and all that. He was not suicidal. There was no indication he was suicidal. So here we have it. Now, none of these people have done anything wrong, which is bullshit. You and I both know that. But we're just digging into it. I still think the Department of Injustice is hiding things. I still think there's things to be found out. I think that the Department of Injustice can arrest people based on what they know. They don't need people to come before Congress. They don't need them to do anything. The FBI should be assisting the Department of Injustice to arrest these same people. They know who they are. So,
Well, there's some other names too that you didn't mention. Clarence Thomas, William Barr. How interesting. Of course, Weinstein, Woody Allen. And but the one that comes to the top of the list to me is Melania Trump. And I've been saying the whole time, I think Melania Trump has been in Epstein/Trump pedophile orbit. And there's reports in here that Epstein introduced Melania to Donald Trump. And so all the interviews they did with the bullshit lies saying that they had some romantic dinner somewhere and somebody they happened to meet. No, Epstein introduced who, in my opinion, one of his call girl clients to a celebrity. That's how they hooked up. And that's one of the reasons why, with all these names that we listed, I left out another folks out. The former ambassador to the UK, Peter Mandel, I believe his name is, and the Norway crown princess, Nettie Merritt. She's mentioned in there quite a few times. But Trump, 35,000 references to Donald Trump. But here's the key for folks, and folks need to do their own research. There are 700 mentions of Trump committing some type of act, whether it be, we don't know, we can't confirm anything yet. So this is just our opinion, or at least my opinion. Anything from raping little girls, to inserting his fingers in little girls to see, what the length of them was, and that I can't even say it without getting angry and
He was
gritting
doing
my
that as he
teeth.
auctioned them off. He was auctioning them off. He would do that and then auction them off. He'd say, this is, whether it be how tight or how deep, things are, whether using his finger, then he'd auction those girls off.
And to all the MAGA folks and the far right wing nuts, I want to use the term AC and BC, or BC and AC. That's referring to Epstein before his conviction and after his conviction. Trump appears in both. So all the BC references before Epstein's conviction, why, and before Donald Trump ran for office, why would folks need to target Donald Trump? To be honest with you, he was your average run-of-the-day celebrity, right? He wasn't a billionaire. We all know about the taxes and all the bullshit he pushed out. He wasn't in that club. They knew he wasn't, but he was a celebrity. There was other celebrities too. So why would they target him then? Makes no sense. This information is old information.
Right.
So you can't dismiss it as, oh, they wanted to target Donald Trump. You weren't that important to anybody prior to you winning the election in 16. You weren't.
Right.
You were just
Yeah.
somebody running around trying to create their own stardom, which is okay, but it had nothing to do with you being president.
It had nothing to do with when people trying to persecute him on things that he didn't do. I mean, there's a whole litany of things that Trump has done, and we've talked about them. He owned a teenage beauty pageant. He'd walk in on the girls when they were changing and naked. Okay, there was a number of women that accused him of sexual abuse and rape. He settled, some of those cases, and with money. So it's not like, what the Epstein files are showing, that, oh, he was just an associate. Okay. Now he may have been, but he was a guilty associate. And people who want to dismiss that is living in a different world. Yeah, we'll see if we get all the facts, but all these people associated with Epstein are saying, I'm innocent, I believe is bullshit. Okay. You don't search this type of person out and go to those type of parties knowing the type of person he is and what he does. So you can say you're innocent all you want. Bill Clinton can say he's innocent. Hillary Clinton, I didn't raise her name, but Hillary Clinton can say she's innocent. Trump can say he's innocent. They all can say they're innocent, but they're not. Thank goodness. Only country that I know has had the backbone to do anything about the allegations was UK, and they took Prince Andrew's title away from him. But that's the only country. And it's shameful that we weren't leading that we weren't the ones setting the example.
Well, the UK demotes folks and punishes them. We promote them and give them a second term. And not only we promote him, but now we found out his wife was part of that orbit too. And I want to ask the question, I don't want to see no documentaries on Melania unless it shows her involvement with Epstein. How much does she know? How much does she participate? Does she recruit other younger girls? Because you're not in that orbit doing nothing. Doesn't
Right,
work that way. You're
right,
either involved or you're not. If you're involved,
right,
they got you doing something. All these
right.
other powerful people, what the hell would make you think that she could just sit in there and not do anything? Here's another interesting part that's breaking out from this release is Russian interference. The Polish government is investigating heavily into Russia's interference into the whole Epstein orbit and scandal. And that's something we have to keep our eyes on because they're saying that they know, as well as other countries know, that they were able to tie Epstein to the KGB. Now you're starting to see how the whole Russia 2016 election, all that came to be, because I believe, like I've always believed, that Putin is grooming Trump to be a dictator. That's why there's this whole issue with Ukraine and Trump not doing anything. I believe that Russia has a part of it. I also believe Israel is playing a role in all of this. But until we get the rest of those files and all this stuff unredacted, I think it's going to knock the socks off the folks in this country, even the folks on the right. They're not going to be able to lie to themselves too much longer. Everything they're doing now, they're hanging on by their fingertips, trying to hang on to support their cult leader.
Let me address something about Melania. I've tried to tiptoe on that issue, okay, because I'm from the South, Southern gentleman, the whole bit. Treat women like ladies until they prove themselves different. Um, Melania was a model, and she was basically washed up. And the reports that we're getting is that women and men were recruited from the modeling agencies to go to these parties and essentially be used to attract rich people. And I think that's where Melania came in. I think she was recruited to go to those parties because she was washed up as a model and she knew it and she had to take the next step and she did. She was an escort, in my opinion. Now, do I have proof that she's an escort? No, I don't. But another word for escort starts with P, okay? Big P. She wasn't on the streets, but, that's another name for escort. And you know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
And I'm not just saying her, I'm, the other women too, or and all that, because they were there for money. They were there to land a rich husband, and Melania happened to use herself as an escort to land Trump. In terms of the thing with Putin, I think Putin has tapes on Trump, okay? And he's using those to control Trump. And I do believe what you said is that Putin has been grooming Trump to take over this country. And it's not just a dictatorship anymore. After you watch what is going on with ICE, it's going to be a military takeover. It's going to be a military country if Trump has his way, because he's not going to be able to control this country through intelligence because he's stupid. He's not going to be able to control it through programs promoted through the Republican Party because they only work for the very rich and the very powerful. So I do believe that Putin has something on him. I do believe that all the discussions that Trump said he was having related to Ukraine was actually Putin telling Trump how to become a dictator, how to get people to believe that the media couldn't be trusted, and how to take, and put those mask murderers on the street that people call ICE.
I think it's going to get a lot hotter before it cools down. I think the Republicans, I know Todd Blanche went on Fox News and he said that basically that's all the files they were going to release. He said that there would be no investigation. And when pressed on it, he said that it's not illegal to party with Epstein. The fuck kind of shit is that? Who says that? It's not illegal to party with Epstein. Stephen Miller's wife is on the internet talking about it's a Democratic hoax. So they got to figure out something. They're just throwing everything against the wall to see what sticks. I just don't understand how being a racist in this country, whether we like it or not, in itself is not a crime. It's not illegal. But being a pedophile and a rapist is illegal. Nothing that Donald Trump does, nothing that Melania Trump does, hell, nothing that Bill Clinton does until you prove, and anybody else on that list till you're proven. If you're on that list to me, you're guilty until proven innocent. It's the opposite for me. That's the way I feel. You're on that list, especially when you're in thousand time. You're guilty until you got to prove to me you're innocent. There's nothing that Donald Trump can do in this country that has me look at him or his wife as nothing else but pedophiles of little boys and little girls. And that's not going to change until they prove to me what's in those files or wrong or lies, because nobody is going to have your name listed with a pedophile in a pedophile circle 35,000 times. Do you expect me to think that you didn't know about it? You were his best friend. Dozens and dozens of pictures with you and him, dozens of documents with you on his plane, and your history of raping women. In your own words, I can grab them by the pussy.
Right.
That's his own words. There's
Mhm.
nothing nobody seen in writing or no. That's his own words. Any man that would say that has the ability to do anything to a woman. If you can make those statements, it's within you to be able to do anything they've accused you of.
Well, if you listen to what's called mainstream media, including Fox and Tom Blanche, none of them talk about interviewing the victims. They didn't bring the victims up. We're not going to pursue this anymore based off of what's in the files that we see that we redacted. Okay. They don't talk about the people that said, I've been raped, whether they're underage girls or underage boys. I've been raped. I was used in a sexual trafficking situation. They do not talk about those situations. They get on Fox News and say, oh, let's redirect attention. There's nothing in the files. Well, that's bullshit, because the women themselves are saying, I was there. Now, it would be one thing to say, okay, well, there was one, but there's many, and they're saying there was thousands. And on top of that, and I'm saying women, young girls at the time, underage girls, but Sasha Riley, his testimony is very believable. He's an underage boy. Trump raped him, and I believe that's one of the things, one of the videos that Putin has on Trump, and that's a video of Trump having sex with an underage boy, because the redneck right is going to make it hard for them to accept that. And I come from the South, like I've said many, many times. I can tell you, rednecks is not something that they're going to stand up for. And you say, "Oh yeah, you stand up for that? That's your president?" No, they'll keep their mouth shut. They might not change their vote, but they'll keep their mouth shut. But what's missing in all of this is testimony by those women and their names. Tom Blanche didn't even bring that up.
I'm glad you raised the Sasha Riley tapes, and once again, we discussed it on a previous podcast. We're asking folks, go listen to the Sasha Riley tapes. Listen for yourself. It's that sick. And it's funny that we haven't heard not one person from the Trump administration dismiss those tapes. There's nothing that goes on in this country that everybody's not privy to. For Donald Trump and his administration just totally ignore those tapes because they know that if they say they never heard of Sasha Riley and that he's never met him, the first bit of information that comes out to confirm it erases everything that they've ever tried to claim. So
I
they're
agree.
they're being mum about it. You can't have these tapes going around, hours worth of tape, with somebody saying that the president of your country raped them as a little boy repeatedly, and not only that, that he did damage to the president of the United States during that time. This is before he was even a candidate to be president. So there's no reason why these folks would come and say this or had said that back then against Donald Trump.
I don't want to be graphic, but I'm going to be graphic. You brought up Trump being physically assaulted. It was Sasha Riley said, and I think it was credible. He tried to kill him, and the assault was an anal assault that caused Trump to be airlifted off the island. Okay, now no one talks about that. Now I listened to all 4 hours of the Sasha Riley case. I believe him. Okay, and I believe that might be one of the things that Trump had or Putin has on Trump. Okay, it might be the Sasha Riley thing, but if we have a real judicial system, not a department of corruption, not a department of injustice, then they should be prosecuting, arresting people that they already have names for that these women said I was raped. And these boys said I was raped. They have credible evidence that says that. Instead of Tom Blanche getting on TV and saying, we're not going to pursue it anymore because it's not in the documents that we redacted. That's not justice at all. If you have a witness that says, you know, that person cut my hand off, okay, that person cut your hand off. All right. You're not going to say, well, the witness said he didn't. You know, and that's what we have. We have all these people saying, "Oh, I knew him, but I didn't do anything wrong." Well, that's just not believable. And I think people that want to fool themselves into that, I think it's an injustice to our country, an injustice to those the women and boys that are now men and women. And I think it's an injustice to our country because they're encouraging the pedophiles, sex trafficking business to continue. And it's $1 billion business in our country, not to say around the world, in our country. And it needs to stop. And it's up to us as voters to stop it. And we got to forget about I'm a Republican or I'm a Democrat or I'm an independent. These are children. Okay. This is a moral issue. It's got to stop.
And I want to touch on something real quick because it kind of falls into the Putin Trump narrative that Trump went on TV and he said that Russia would be ceasing bombing of Ukraine because of this terrible cold weather they were in, and they didn't want to. It was really inhumane to be trying to bomb, whether it be any type of energy building that they had in Ukraine. And Zelensky, thanked Trump for having Russia make that statement. And as they were, before they could even finish, he bombed them. So folks relaxed. You think, oh, we can go out, we can shop, we can go buy food, we can go visit our relatives. And then Putin turns around and drops one of the heaviest bombings on Ukraine in years. And that shows you that Putin can't be trusted, but it also shows you that he doesn't give a damn about Donald Trump because, like you said, he has the goods on him. There's
Yeah.
nothing Donald Trump can do to Putin except follow his lead. And Putin told him, you better become a dictator because if you don't, they're going to get you when you get out of office, and rightfully so.
If people don't believe that Putin has something on Trump, they have to believe if Trump comes back and says, "Oh, I cut this deal," and then Ukraine can relax a little bit, and Putin turns around and bombs their utilities and puts them in freezing conditions, which is what he did. Okay, you have to look at Trump as being an idiot for believing Putin. And you have to look at the people who believe Trump and wonder where is their common sense at? Because these things don't add up. Trump says this, but something exactly the opposite happens, which is not new. It's not new to you, it's not new to us, it's not new to America. You know, what he says is exactly opposite of what really happens. Okay. And that's what's occurring. We said it before, or at least I said it. I think Trump has traded Ukraine for South America, Ukraine and Europe for South America. I think Putin and him have cut a deal. Trump was a real estate dealer, and that's what he's doing in his mind. He's dealing in real estate.
I don't think it was a deal. I think Putin said, "Here, I'm gonna take this, and I'll let you take that in the Western Hemisphere. And if not, I'll release everything I have on you." And I believe that Trump started talking about election fraud because they did it in 2016.
Right, right. They know how
And
to do it
and
now.
they know how to do it, and they assume that other people are doing it. That's where that's coming from. It's not coming from, and I believe that it happened again with Elon Musk's help in 2024. That'll
Yes.
come out later. One of the things that angers me about the Democratic Party, or I now forget the Democratic Party, about progressives and liberals, but it also endears me to them. This is the same thing, is that we love democracy. We really love the Constitution. The far right only loves the democracy and the Constitution when it benefits them. If we see that there's a chance, we think that having a democratic voting process is more important than doing what Donald Trump and the right is doing, is arguing that this so-called if 200 people out of 160 million who vote were voted illegally, that constitutes voter fraud. To them, they'll tear the whole system down to try to win, and we'll overlook stuff because we think that democracy and the right to free and fair elections is important, is more important than winning one or two elections here or there.
Well, if you look at history over time, you know, in every election, there's a winner and there's a loser. In every election, the loser, if they were, a president, they make a peaceful transfer of power, except for when it came to Donald Trump, you know, and, he's hollering that there was election fraud. Well, I'm looking at it from a couple different ways now. Look what he's doing down in Georgia. He sent the FBI down there to confiscate all the voting records. Now, obviously, what's going to come out of that, because I don't trust the FBI and Kash Patel, is that we're gonna find massive voter fraud, even though Trump filed over 60 things in court saying there was voter fraud and was denied every time for lack of evidence. So he's going to quote unquote find it. And I call there's another word, it's called manufacture it. And then he's going to take control of it. And he said yesterday on TV, there's 15 places that he's looking at that he thinks the federal government should move in, or the Republican Party should move in and control the election process there. They're all going to be blue states. They're all going to be blue cities. They're all going to be where there's a concentration of votes. And he's setting the system up so that he can retain Republican control. And people need to look at that. The Constitution does not allow that, because that is what kings do. They control everything throughout the country. And our Constitution was set up so that each state would set the election rules so that the president didn't have that authority to control it. And Trump's taking that authority. And the Republican Party's not doing anything about it. They want to stay in power. They know that they have not attracted the attention of what the majority of the Americans in this country really want. They have attracted the attention of the militia. They've attracted the attention of white supremacists, and racists. But what the majority of the people in this country want the votes show it, is that this country has changed. And they want something different from the Republican Party than they were getting. And the Republican Party, the only change they're making is how do we keep people from voting?
Look, we're going to stay in this fight. I want folks to do their own research and join us next Friday. We're going to continue this fight. So, folks, we're at the end of another episode. I want to thank everybody for taking time to watch. Don't forget to hit the like, share, and subscribe buttons below. And also leave your comments. We're interested in what you're thinking, unless you're a far right-wing MAGA nut, and we don't give a damn what you're thinking. So, until next week, let's stay in the fight. Let's keep this country out of the hands of those far right-wing nuts. Peace.
This segment of Al's Joint is brought to you by JPAC Trucking.